forests are fragmented, when the forests are lost, they are also losing their directions to their survival. Forests are homes to many wildlife, including orangutans. Orangutans in Sumatra are depending so much on the forest. Without the forest, orangutans cannot survive. Unfortunately, these forests are shrinking for many expansion of illegal activities, and including legal activities such as encouragement and agricultural development for plantations. For orangutans, this shrinking forest is very critical to their survival. Without the integrity of this forest, orangutan cannot survive in the long term. And that orangutan needs forests, they need trees, and these trees provide so much for orangutans, including food and the place they roam and they rest and they sleep and they survive. At the same time, the forest not only provide services for wildlife, but also for human beings, for people who lives around the forests and even far from the forests, for the water supply, for the carbon sequestrations and the climate change protections. Actually, the forests provide so much for the life of human beings. Unfortunately, the forests that actually the habitat of many wildlife need help from our humanity, from our civilizations, in order to make our life coexist with wildlife, plants, forests, and humans. For orangutans in Sumatra, the integrity of the habitat, the forests and the trees are very essential. When the forests are fragmented, when the forests are lost, they are also losing their directions to their survival. When they are losing the trees, they lose the food for them to survive and for them to rest on the nest every night, every day they make to eat, to rest, and to actually help the baby to sustain and survive. So the forest is really important for the orangutans, and because there is so much disturbance in the forest sometimes, and in many occasions, orangutans have to be pushed out of the forest and they come to the farmland and they go to the plantations in search of food in order to survive. In many ways, when they are searching food, when they are foraging to get food for them to survive, they have to face such serious threats such as any action or many mitigation action by local people to scare away orangutans. In that way, conflict is happening. When orangutans actually trying to get food from the fruits that actually cultivated by local people, and local people are trying to even shoot, scare away, or trying to actually throw some things that can harm the orangutans. In many ways, orangutans cannot go back to the forest because the forests were fragmented, and then they had no way to find a path to go back to the forest. And in that case, our team is always on the front line to see and to check and to observe these lost orangutans populations, and then they actually trying to provide help and assistance so orangutan can go back to the forest into safety. During the rescue operation, our team has to really understand the situation, the risk, and the way we want to make the best efforts for orangutans to be safe for the health aspect and the survival of the orangutans. In the rescue operations, the orangutans are the priorities to be safety. In many ways, our safety, the team safety, is the second priority. And in order to do that, we have to mitigate and manage the risk properly without any risk that can harm the orangutans. So we tranquilize the orangutans. Prior to tranquilizing, we have to relocate the orangutan into safety so we can tranquilize safely and properly. And then we have to set net. Then we have to make sure that orangutan falling down into safe area without actually touching the ground so hard. And in many ways, this is very risky operation for orangutans. And then when orangutans actually falling down, we have to check the health of orangutans thoroughly to ensure the orangutan is surviving and in a good health. And then we bring orangutans into the forest area where they can roam freely and safely. But we must check as well the release site is safe for orangutans and not disturbed by human activities such as illegal logging and hunting and poaching. So rescue is the last resort for our team to ensure the safety and survival of the orangutan. They're actually facing such a life-threatening situation. And then in that way, we actually have to do as the last options, and we have to make sure that the best practice for rescuing is on the top of our priority to ensure the survival of the orangutans. And we are very happy to see orangutans being released back to the wild, but at the same time, we are actually sometimes feeling so much concern about orangutans being pushing out of the home, of their place, of their habitat, has to go through such a dangerous situation in plantations, and we want to make sure that this danger is actually being addressed properly so we can prevent conflict, we prevent incidents that lead to the killings of orangutans. Securing the habitat is really important for the survival of orangutans and other wildlife. Without the habitat, they cannot sustain their life. And in order to do that, our team on the ground has to do many things to secure the habitat, including the planting activities in order to restore the degraded forest. In order to do that, we have to work with local people. We have to develop such capacity building for local people. We have to do many ways, including the nursery preparations, collecting seeds, and then planting activities that has to be led by local people. And these efforts have been underway for such a long time. For the last 15 years, the Orangutan Information Center has been doing planting activities, and not just planting, but our team ensure the survival of the trees that we planted, and then the team actually really monitor the growth of the trees. And then at the same time, after a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, many wildlife were returning to our sites, and then our team has the task to monitor the wildlife that returned to the site that we already planted. Previously was just degraded and condemned forests that need to be highly protected, more protected by our team at the same time when we are doing planting trees. And the restoration is the key to our project cycle, when we actually really can showcase the growth of the forest, and we believe that restoration is possible. Bringing back the nature, bringing back the forest is possible. Bringing the trees back to the degraded forest is possible. Replacing palm oil trees, for example, in the forest area is possible. That we actually do many efforts through tree planting, and then we actually very grateful and very appealing when we see many trees that we planted becoming standing forests and becoming new home for orangutans, elephants, even tigers. So we witness that. We witness all this wildlife coming back to our forests. We are witnessing the biodiversity coming back to our forest that was lost, and then now becoming so much useful place for many wildlife, including humans, and then water is coming back to the forest that we actually planted, and then biodiversity is start to bloom, start to grow in such hopeful directions, and then this is really happy to see trees growing up and up, and it become canopy that shelter many species, including orangutans. So Orangutan Information Center is providing training for local people, such as organic farming and improving the productivity of the local people, providing so much assistance to improve the harvest, and at the same time, the local people have more capacity to manage their own resources, and at the same time, when they actually become better in the economy, they are better off in the economy, then they actually not depend so much on the forest. So we need to improve the livelihood that focus so much on their own land without actually necessarily expanding to the forest. Without the people who actually manage and protect the forest will all the time in a dangerous situation, because local people are poor and they have no capacity to improve their economy and their livelihood and their family. So they have to really work hand in hand with the forest and their own livelihood.